Hello students. Today we'll be discussing about the anatomy of parotid gland. Parotid gland is the largest salivary gland. It is a type of compound tubo-alveolar gland, predominantly serous type. The competency of the parotid gland topic according to the new CBME curriculum are the following. So the learning objective of these lectures are at the end of this session, students should be able to describe and demonstrate the part of parotid gland, the borders, surfaces, contents and relations of the parotid gland. Also, students should be able to discuss about the nerve supply of parotid gland along with the course of parotid duct and its surgical importance. Also, a word about Frey syndrome will be considered in this session. The parotid gland is the largest salivary gland, weighing around 15 to 30 grams. It is located below the external acoustic meatus, between the mandible and the sternocleidomastoid muscle. So the parotid gland is shaped like an inverted pyramid. It is having an upper surface that is also known as base and an apex projecting downwards. It is sandwiched between the sternocleidomastoid posteriorly and the ramus of mandible anteriorly. If we see superiorly, the parotid gland is limited by the zygomatic arch. Posterosuperiorly is the gland is related to the external acoustic meatus along with the ramus of mandible. Postero-inferiorly, it is limited by the mastoid process and the structure gaining attachment to the mastoid process, that are the mastoid head of sternocleidomastoid muscle. Inferiorly, the gland is limited by the sternocleidomastoid muscle. Anteriorly, the masseter muscle limits the gland anteriorly. So this is the location of the parotid gland. This is sandwiched between the ramus of mandible anteriorly and the sternocleidomastoid posteriorly. Parotid gland is lying over the structures which are forming what is known as parotid bed. Anteriorly, if we see, the bed for the parotid gland is formed by the posterior border of ramus of mandible, which is also giving attachment to the masseter muscle as well as the medial pterygoid muscle. Posteriorly we'll be having the mastoid process, which is giving attachment to the sternocleidomastoid muscle along with the posterior belly of digastric. Superiorly, the bed of the parotid gland is formed by the external acoustic meatus. Medially, the styloid process along with the styloid apparatus, that is consisting of the styloglossus muscle, the stylopharyngeus muscle, the stylohyoid muscle, also stylohyoid ligament and the stylomandibular ligament. These are forming the bed for the parotid gland. If we see, the parotid gland is enclosed in a capsule which is also known as parotid sheath. Now this parotid capsule or the parotid sheath is derived by the investing layer of deep cervical fascia. The investing layer of deep cervical fascia, it splits into two, the superficial lamellae and the deep lamellae. The superficial lamellae of the sheath is strong and it is gaining attachment to the lower border of zygomatic arch. Also, it blends with the epimysium of the masseter muscle to form a thick fascia that is known as parotidomasseteric fascia. The deep lamina of the investing layer of deep cervical fascia is thin and it is gaining attachment to the tympanic plate and the styloid process of temporal bone. And it has a thickened part which is extending from the tip of styloid process to the angle of mandible, forming what is known as stylomandibular ligament. This stylomandibular ligament, it separates the parotid gland from the submandibular gland. If we see here, the fascia, investing layer of deep cervical fascia, it splits to enclose the gland. superficial layer is gaining attachment to the zygomatic arch and it is blending with the epimysium of the masseter muscle to form the parieto-masseteric fascia, whereas the deep lamina is gaining attachment to the tympanic plate and the styloid process of temporal bone, and it has a thickened part which extends from the tip of styloid process to the angle of mandible, forming the stylomandibular ligament separating this parotid gland from the submandibular gland. This is the investing layer of deep cervical fascia, splitting into a superficial lamina and a deep lamina. Superficial lamina, as we have already discussed, is gaining attachment to the lower border of zygomatic arch and it blends with the fascia epimysium of the masseter muscle, forming what is known as parieto-masseteric fascia, whereas the deep lamina is gaining attachment to the tympanic plate and the styloid process, forming a thickened stylomandibular ligament separating the parotid gland from the submandibular gland. Also, so the superficial surface of gland is covered by investing layer of deep cervical fascia, also the posterior fibers of platysma, superficial lymphatics, and this part of the parotid gland is supplied by the fibers of great auricular nerve, which is a branch of facial nerve, and the deep surface of gland is related to the buccinator muscle. The parotid capsule is unyielding in nature. It is derived from the investing layer of deep cervical fascia. This is supplied by the great auricular nerve. So the inflammation or the tension within the parotid gland can cause severe pain just in front of temporomandibular joint, and the pain is increased at the meal times. Usually this is seen with infections, that is the mumps or the parotid gland obstruction, parotid gland duct obstruction. To describe the surfaces and borders of the parotid gland is an inverted pyramidal shaped structure which is having a superior aspect, that is known as base, and inferiorly projecting apex. It is an inverted pyramidal shaped structure having an upper base or the superior surface and an apex pointing downwards. This gland has three surfaces divided by three borders. This is the superficial surface. This is the anterior border. Anterior border separates the superficial surface from the anteromedial surface. There is a posterior border which separates the superficial surface from the posteromedial surface. And there is a medial border which separates the anteromedial surface from the posteromedial surface. So there are three surfaces, that is the superficial surface, the anteromedial surface and the posteromedial surface. Superficial surface is separated from the anteromedial surface by the anterior border. The posterior border separates the superficial surface from the posteromedial surface, and the medial border separates the anteromedial surface from the posteromedial surface. This is an inner aspect or the deeper view of the parotid gland, having an upper base and a lower apex. This is the medial border which is separating the anteromedial surface from the posteromedial surface. If we cut it transversely, there is a section which shows this is the superficial surface, this is an anteromedial surface, and this is a posteromedial surface. The medial border separates the anteromedial surface from the posteromedial surface. The anterior border separates the superficial surface from the anteromedial, and the posterior border separates the superficial surface from the posteromedial surface. Talking about apex of the parotid gland, it is directed downwards and it is overlapping the posterior belly of digastric. The apex of parotid gland, it appears in the carotid triangle. There are certain structures which are passing through the apex of parotid gland. These are the cervical branch of the facial nerve, anterior and the posterior division of retromandibular vein, and the formation of external jugular. So if we see here, apex of the parotid gland, the structure passing are the cervical branch of facial nerve, anterior and the posterior divisions of retromandibular vein, and the formation of external jugular vein. Base is concave and is forming the superior surface, and it is related to the external acoustic meatus and the posterior part of temporomandibular joint. The structures passing through the base are the superficial temporal vessels, that is the superficial temporal artery and the superficial temporal vein. Also the auriculotemporal nerve, this is the auriculotemporal nerve, and the temporal branch of facial nerve. These are the structures which are emerging and they are passing through the superior surface or base of parotid gland. If we see here, this is the base. The structure emerging or passing through the base are the superficial temporal vessels, auriculotemporal nerve, and the temporal branch of facial nerve. Talking about the superficial surface, which is also known as the lateral surface. It is covered by skin, superficial fascia, posterior fibers of platysma, and it is in contact with the superficial lamella of the parotid sheath. The superficial fascia, which covers the superficial surface, contains the superficial group of lymph nodes and the branches of great auricular nerve, which supplies the skin over angle of mandible. The great auricular nerve, it is supplying skin over the angle of mandible, is coming in relation to the superficial surface of parotid gland. Talking about the anteromedial surface, this is the superficial or the lateral surface, and this is the medial aspect. Now the medial aspect of the gland is divided by the medial border here into an anteromedial and a posteromedial surface. The anteromedial surface is grooved deeply by the ramus of mandible. So the structures which are coming in relation to this surface, that is the anteromedial surface of parotid gland, are the masseter muscle, the ramus, posterior border of ramus of mandible, the capsule of TM joint, and the medial pterygoid muscle. So the muscles which are gaining attachment to the ramus of mandible, that is the masseter and the medial pterygoid, along with the posterior border of ramus of mandible, are in relation with the anteromedial surface. So this surface is grooved. This is the inner lip of the groove and this is the outer lip of the groove. If we see here, the outer lip is transmitting the branches of facial nerve. The inner lip of groove, it is transmitting the maxillary artery medial to the neck of mandible. Now if we talk about the posteromedial surface, we have already discussed that is the medial border which separates the anteromedial from the posteromedial surface. The posteromedial surface is extensive and it comes in contact with the mastoid process along with its attachment, that is the sternocleidomastoid muscle and the posterior belly of digastric. Also, the posteromedial surface is related to the styloid process along with the styloid apparatus. This is black dot which is representing the styloid process, and the attachment to the styloid process are in the form of styloid apparatus consisting of 3 muscles and the 2 ligaments. If we see here, the styloid process, it separates the carotid sheath and it contents from the posteromedial surface of the parotid gland. If we appreciate here, this is the styloid process. The posteromedial surface is coming in relation with the styloid process along with its attachment, and the mastoid process along with the attachment of posterior belly of digastric and the sternocleidomastoid muscle. So we have seen that the styloid process separates the posteromedial surface of the parotid gland from the structures which lie deep to the styloid process, that are the contents present in the carotid sheath, which are the internal jugular vein and the internal carotid artery along with the last 4 cranial nerves. Also we see that the facial nerve it emerges from the stylomastoid foramens and it enters the posteromedial surface of gland and it traverses through the substance of the gland. Also, the external carotid artery, it enters and it lodges in a groove on the posteromedial surface of the parotid gland, lower part, and it pierces the gland. If we see here and appreciate that this is the parotid gland, it is divided into a superficial part and the deep part by the facial nerve. Then there is a retromandibular vein in the second plane, and the deeper plane lies the external carotid artery. It lodges in a groove on the posteromedial surface, gives the posterior auricular branch, and then it ascends upwards in the substance of parotid gland, divides itself into the terminal branches that are the maxillary and superficial temporal. If we quickly summarize what has been covered up till now, the pyramidal shaped parotid gland has a superior surface, that is the base, and an apex pointing downwards. The three borders, that are the anterior, posterior and the medial border, they separates the three surface. This is the superficial surface, this is the posteromedial surface, this is the anteromedial surface. Again here if we see, this is the skin, this is the superficial aspect, this is the medial deeper aspect of the parotid gland. The substance, as already been discussed, the substance of the parotid gland is divided in three zones. So the facial nerve is traversing, it is arising through the stylomandibular foramen, entering through the posteromedial surface of parotid gland, traversing through the substance, coming out. The branches of facial nerve are coming out along the anterior border of the parotid gland. This facial nerve divides the gland into superficial zone and a deeper zone. In the next plane lies the retromandibular vein, and the deeper plane lies the external carotid artery. The superficial surface or the lateral surface, this is the anteromedial surface. Anteromedial surface is deeply grooved and it is lying in relation to the posterior border of ramus of mandible, giving attachment to the masseter and medial pterygoid muscle. This is the posteromedial surface which is coming in relation to the mastoid process along with the attachment of posterior belly of digastric and sternocleidomastoid and the styloid process giving attachment to the styloid apparatus. Now talking about borders of the parotid gland, the anterior border is thin and it rests on the masseter muscle and it separates the superficial or the lateral surface from the anteromedial surface. The structures which are emerging deep to the anterior border are the terminal branches of the facial nerve, which are the temporal branches, the zygomatic branches, the buccal branches, the marginal mandibular and the cervical branch. If we see in order, the structures which are coming out from the anterior border are the temporal branch of the facial nerve, the zygomatic branch of the facial nerve, then the transverse facial artery and the vein, that is the transverse facial vessels, upper buccal branch, then we have the parotid duct, lower buccal branch, marginal mandibular branch and the cervical branch of the facial nerve. Talking about the posterior border of the parotid gland, the posterior border separates the superficial or the lateral surface from the posteromedial surface and it is resting on the sternocleidomastoid muscle. This is the posterior border. It is resting on the sternocleidomastoid muscles. The structures which are passing beneath the posterior border are the posterior auricular artery and vein. The medial border, it is separating the anteromedial surface from the posteromedial surface and it may comes in contact sometime with the wall of pharynx. So this medial border is also known as pharyngeal border. Medial border separates the anteromedial surface from the posteromedial surface. This is the medial border which may sometimes comes in contact with the wall of pharynx, also known as the pharyngeal border of parotid gland. Now there is an accessory parotid gland, the small part of the facial process of the parotid gland. It may become detached from the main gland, and it is situated between the zygomatic arch and the parotid duct. So this part of the gland, also known as facial process, it gets detached from the main gland and it is situated between the zygomatic arch, if we say a zygomatic arch, and the parotid duct. This is known as accessory parotid gland. Now, talking about the structures which passes through the gland, we have already discussed that structures from outer aspect towards the inner aspect are the facial nerve. Facial nerve divides the gland into superficial lobe and the deeper lobe. In the second plane is the retromandibular vein, and the innermost deeper plane is the external carotid artery. Some parotid group of lymph nodes are situated within the superficial zone of the gland. So if we appreciate here, the facial nerve is the superficial, most superficial. In an intermediate plane is the retromandibular vein, and the deeper plane lies the external carotid artery. The structures which are passing through the parotid gland from the superficial to deep zone are: the superficial passes the facial nerve, which enters through the posteromedial surface, traverses through the substance dividing the gland into superficial lobe and a deep lobe, and it divides into 5 terminal branches that are the temporal branch, the zygomatic branch. The buccal branches will further divide into upper buccal, lower buccal, marginal mandibular, and cervical. These are the branches of facial nerve. In the middle zone lies the retromandibular vein, and in the deeper zone lies the external carotid artery and its 3 branches, that is the posterior auricular, the maxillary, and the superficial temporal branch. Now talking again of the structures which are present in the substance of parotid gland are the facial nerve, the retromandibular vein, and the external carotid artery. The facial nerve is the most superficial structure that is passing throughout the parotid gland. The facial nerve enters the gland through the posteromedial surface and divides into 5 terminal branches. Those are the temporal branch, the zygomatic, the buccal, further dividing into upper buccal, lower buccal, marginal mandibular, and the cervical branch. The terminal branches of the facial nerve, they leave the gland through the anteromedial surface and emerge along the anterior border of parotid gland. The retromandibular vein, it is located in the intermediate zone of the parotid gland. It is formed by union of superficial temporal along with the maxillary vein, and it further divides into anterior and the posterior division in the lower part of the gland. The anterior division, it joins with the facial vein to form a common facial vein, and the posterior division joins with the posterior auricular vein to form the external jugular vein. The external carotid artery, it is present in the deepest plane. It enters the parotid gland through the posteromedial surface, and it gives a posterior auricular branch and then divides into terminal branches that are the maxillary artery and the superficial temporal artery. Also, the transverse facial artery, which is a branch of superficial temporal artery, emerges along the anterior border of the gland. Talking about the facial nerve enters the posterior border of parotid gland after it emerges from the stylomastoid foramen. The gland is divided into superficial and deep part, or superficial and deep lobes, by the branches of facial nerve. The part of the gland that is medial to facial nerve is the deeper lobe, while the part of the parotid gland that is lateral to the facial nerve is the superficial lobe. The lobes are connected by the isthmus of glandular tissue so that the gland appears to be H-shaped in coronal section. Within the substance of the gland, the facial nerve bifurcates into superior frontotemporal and inferior cervicofacial divisions. So the facial nerve bifurcates into two divisions, the superior and inferior. The superior division is also known as frontotemporal, temporofacial, and inferior division is also known as cervicofacial divisions. The branches of facial nerve that lies in the middle layer of parotid sandwich, and it helps in the removal of parotid tumor, thereby leaving the facial nerve intact. So the facial nerve, it enters the parotid gland through the posteromedial surface. It is the most superficial structures passing throughout the parotid gland. It runs superficial to the retromandibular vein and the external carotid artery and divides into two trunks, that are the temporofacial and the cervicofacial. The temporofacial runs upwards and divides into temporal and the zygomatic branches, whereas the cervical or the inferior trunk, it divides into buccal, marginal mandibular and the cervical branches. If we see the 5 terminal branches, they radiate like goose foot through the anterior border of the gland and they supply the facial muscle. Such branching pattern is known as pes ensinus. Radiate like goose feet through the anterior border. Talking about the retromandibular vein, the retromandibular vein lies in the intermediate zone of the parotid gland. It is formed by the union of superficial temporal vein and the maxillary vein. They unite to form the retromandibular vein, which further divides into anterior and posterior division. If we see here, the superficial temporal joins with the maxillary vein in the substance of parotid gland to form the retromandibular vein, further dividing into anterior division and posterior division. The anterior division, it joins with the facial vein to form common facial vein draining into the internal jugular vein. The posterior division of the retromandibular vein joins with the posterior auricular vein to form the external jugular vein. Similarly here, the maxillary vein joins with the superficial temporal to form the retromandibular vein, which lies in the intermediate zone of the parotid gland, dividing into anterior and the posterior division. Anterior division joins with the facial vein to form the common facial vein draining into internal jugular, and the posterior division of retromandibular vein joins with the posterior auricular vein to drain into external jugular vein. The external carotid artery, it lies in the deepest zone of the parotid gland and it enters the parotid gland through the posteromedial surface, a groove on the lower part of the posteromedial surface where it gives a posterior auricular branch. It further ascends and it divides into terminal branches, that are the maxillary artery and the superficial temporal artery. If we see, the superficial temporal artery gives a branch, that is the transverse facial artery, which emerges through the anterior border of the parotid gland. The external carotid enters through the groove on the lower part of posteromedial surface, ascends in the substance of the gland lying in the deepest zone, divides into terminal branches, the maxillary and the superficial temporal. Superficial temporal gives a branch, that is the transverse facial artery, which emerges along the anterior border. If we appreciate here, this is the external carotid and it ascends within the substance of the parotid gland, lies in the deepest zone, dividing into terminal branches, that is the maxillary artery and the superficial temporal artery. So if we summarize again, what are the structures which are emerging from the parotid gland? The structures which are emerging at the apex are the cervical branch of facial nerve and the anterior and posterior divisions of the retromandibular vein. Structures which are emerging at the base of parotid gland from anterior to posterior are the temporal branch of facial nerve, superficial temporal vessels and the auriculotemporal nerve. The structures which are emerging along the anterior border from above downwards are the zygomatic branch of the facial nerve, the transverse facial artery, upper buccal branch of the facial nerve, parotid duct, lower buccal branch of facial nerve, marginal mandibular branch of facial nerve. And the structures which are emerging along the posterior border of parotid gland are the posterior auricular branch of the facial nerve and the posterior auricular vessels. If we again summarize the deep relations, structures which are related to anteromedial surface are the ramus of mandible, the masseter muscle, the medial pterygoid muscle, and the lateral aspect of temporomandibular joint. Also are the terminal branches of facial nerve. Structures in relation to the posteromedial surface. Remember, this is the medial border, so this is the posteromedial surface. The structures which are related to posteromedial surface of parotid gland are the mastoid process with the attachment of sternocleidomastoid and the posterior belly of digastric, the styloid process and the muscles which are attached to it consisting of the styloid apparatus. Facial nerve enters the gland through the posteromedial surface, and the external carotid artery is lodged in a groove in the lower part of posteromedial surface. The styloid process, it separates the gland from the internal carotid artery, internal jugular vein, and the last four cranial nerves in the carotid sheath. Talking about the parotid duct is also known as Stenson's duct. It is formed within the gland by union of smaller ductules. The parotid duct is roughly about 5 cm long and 3 mm in width. It leaves the superior part of the anteromedial surface of gland and it passes horizontally over the surface of masseter muscle, and then it courses medially towards the anterior border of the muscle, that is the masseter muscle. When it reaches the anterior border of masseter muscle, the duct abruptly turns right to cross over the buccinator muscle. Here, this is the buccinator muscle and the associated buccal pad of fat. So the parotid duct or the Stenson's ducts, it arises within the gland by union of smaller ductules, and it leaves the superior part of the anteromedial surface of the gland, and the duct emerges through the anterior border of the gland. It passes over the masseter muscle between the upper and lower buccal branches of the facial nerve, and it lies midway between the angle of the mouth and the zygomatic arch. At the anterior border of the masseter muscle, the duct abruptly turns. It takes a sharp 90-degree angle medial turn towards the buccal pad of fat, and it pierces the buccopharyngeal fascia and the buccinator muscle opposite the third molar tooth. So the parotid duct or the Stenson's duct emerges along the anterior border, runs over the masseter. At the anterior border, it abruptly turns medially, pierces the buccal pad of fat, buccopharyngeal fascia, and the buccinator muscle. This greenish is the buccinator muscle opposite the upper third molar tooth. And finally, the duct, it passes obliquely between the buccinator muscle and the mucous membrane of the cheek, and it opens in the vestibule of mouth on the papilla opposite the crown of upper second molar tooth. This oblique course of the submucosal part of the Stenson's duct or the parotid duct, it acts as a valve and thereby prevents inflation of duct during the violent blowing. But this oblique course is also prone for stone formation. So at the anterior border of masseter, it turns medially and it pierces the buccal pad of fat, the buccopharyngeal fascia and the buccinator muscle, and it opens into the vestibule of mouth opposite the crown of upper second molar tooth. The oblique course of the duct through the buccinator prevents inflation during blowing, but obliquity is proning the duct for stone formation. Now, talking about the blood supply of the parotid gland, the arteries which are supplying the glands are derived from the branches of external carotid, and the veins are draining into tributaries of external jugular vein. So, the veins are the superficial temporal and the maxillary vein. Again, they unite to form retromandibular vein, which is further divided into anterior and posterior divisions. Also, the external carotid artery, when it enters the gland, it gives a posterior auricular branch and it divides into terminal branches that are the maxillary artery and the superficial temporal artery. Talking about the lymphatic drainage, the lymph from the parotid gland, it drains into superficial and the deeper group of parotid lymph nodes, which ultimately terminates into the deep cervical group of lymph nodes. There are numerous lymph nodes. They are distributed throughout and around the substance of the parotid gland, and this is an exception to the norm, as all other salivary glands, both major and minor, do not have lymph nodes within the glandular tissue and have a far fewer lymph nodes which are surrounding them. The lymph nodes of parotid gland, they are distributed throughout the superficial and deep lobe of the glands. The majority of lymph nodes, about 90%, are found in the superficial node of the parotid gland. The nodes themselves are situated close to the surface of the gland between the capsule and the glandular tissue. The superficial set of lymph node drains the external acoustic meatus, the auricle or the pinna, the scalp, eyelids and lacrimal gland in addition to the parotid gland. The deeper set of lymph nodes, they also drain other structures in addition to parotid gland, and that are the external acoustic meatus, the soft palate, the middle ear and the nasopharynx. Now let us talk about the innervation and nerve supply of the parotid gland. Every structure in the human body have interaction with the brain through varying connections of cranial and peripheral nerves. There are two major modalities that are transmitted to and from the parotid gland. These are the autonomic instructions and the sensory perceptions. These nerve impulses are transmitted along the cranial nerves to the parotid gland. So the gland is under parasympathetic regulations. It receives these fibers from the lesser petrosal nerve. The lesser petrosal nerve is a branch of glossopharyngeal nerve, which is the ninth cranial nerve. So the ninth cranial nerve, it is synapsing on the otic ganglion. We'll be discussing about the otic ganglion in the subsequent lectures. And the postganglionic secretomotor fibers that emerge from the otic ganglion reach the parotid gland via the auriculotemporal nerve, which is a branch of mandibular division of trigeminal nerve. The sympathetic supply is derived from the adjacent sympathetic plexus of the carotid sheath. The auriculotemporal nerve is also responsible for carrying the general visceral afferent, that is the sensory stimuli from the gland as well. So if we discuss the secretomotor or the parasympathetic supply of the gland is derived from the auriculotemporal nerve, here depicted in the yellow. This is also carrying the sensory fibers. The sympathetic plexus is derived from the plexus around the external carotid artery. The parasympathetic or the secretomotor supply is through the auriculotemporal nerve and it produces watery secretion. The sympathetic nerve supply causes vasomotor changes, mucus-rich sticky secretions, and these sympathetic supply is derived from the plexus around the external carotid artery. Sensory supply again is through the auriculotemporal nerve and through the great auricular nerve, which supplies the skin around the angle of the mandible. Now talking about the parasympathetic or the secretomotor pathway, the preganglionic parasympathetic fibers, they arise from the inferior salivatory nucleus. of the medulla oblongata, and they passes through the tympanic branch of the glossopharyngeal nerve. The tympanic branch of glossopharyngeal nerve, it forms the tympanic plexus, and the lesser petrosal nerve, it arises and it relays in the otic ganglion. The postganglionic fibers, they pass through the auriculotemporal nerve and they reach the gland. If we see here, the preganglionic parasympathetic fibers, they are arising from the inferior salivatory nucleus of the medulla. They pass through the tympanic branch of the glossopharyngeal nerve and it relays in the otic ganglion through the lesser petrosal nerve. This is the tympanic branch of glossopharyngeal nerve forming the tympanic plexus. The tympanic plexus, from the tympanic plexus arises the lesser petrosal nerve. It relays in the otic ganglion and through the auriculotemporal nerve. The postganglionic fibers of the arising from the otic ganglion, they reach the parotid gland through auriculotemporal nerve. In this flow chart, again, to simplify it, the preganglionic parasympathetic fibers are arising in the inferior salivatory nucleus of medulla. They pass through the glossopharyngeal nerve, which is the 9th cranial nerve. Through its tympanic branch, they form the tympanic plexus. The lesser petrosal nerve arises from the tympanic plexus and relays in the otic ganglion. The postganglionic fibers arising from the otic ganglion pass through the auriculotemporal nerve to reach the parotid gland. Talking about the sympathetic supply to the parotid gland, these are the vasomotor fibers which are arising in the superior cervical ganglion and they relay in a plexus around the external carotid artery, and the postganglionic fibers from the superior cervical ganglion, they pass through the otic ganglion without relaying and they reach the parotid gland. They are responsible for the mucus-rich sticky secretion. And as already been told, the sensory supply is through the auriculotemporal nerve. A word about the development of parotid gland. It develops as an ectodermal furrow from the angle of primitive stomodium and grows laterally between the mandibular arch and its maxillary process. So if we revise again the nerve supply, the preganglionic parasympathetic fibers, they arise from the inferior salivatory nucleus of the medulla and passes through the tympanic branch of glossopharyngeal nerve. These are the ganglia of the glossopharyngeal nerve and they pass through the tympanic branch of glossopharyngeal nerve, resulting in formation of tympanic plexus. The lesser petrosal nerve arising from the tympanic plexus, it relays in the otic ganglion, and the postganglionic fibers, they pass through the auriculotemporal nerve and they reach the gland. About the sympathetic supply, it arises from the plexus around the external carotid artery. The postganglionic fibers, they are arising from the superior cervical ganglion and they are just passing through the otic ganglion without relaying in it and they reach the parotid gland. The auriculotemporal nerve carries the sensory fibers to the parotid gland. Applied anatomy of the parotid gland. As we have already discussed, the inflammatory swellings of the parotid glands are painful, that are due to the unyielding nature of the parotid capsule or the parotid sheath. The pain, it increases at the meal time when the gustatory stimulus triggers the turgor within the capsule. Also, if we see the mumps is a viral infection, it may be accompanied by inflammation of testes or the pancreas, resulting in the inflammation of the parotid gland. Another condition associated with the parotid gland is the parotid abscess. It is an inflammation and collection of the pus material due to infection that may travel from the oral cavity via parotid duct. It can be drained by a small horizontal incision to avoid injuries to the branches of facial nerve. Another aspect of the parotid gland are the swellings. These can be benign tumors They are mixed parotid tumors. They are slow growing benign tumors which are painless as they does not involve the facial nerve, and it can be malignant, which are the painful tumors as the facial nerve is involved. Another important clinical condition associated with parotid gland is the Fraze syndrome, also known as auriculotemporal syndrome or the gustatory sweating. The cause of syndrome involves the aberrant regeneration of the auriculotemporal nerve, which is a branch of mandibular nerve, following injury, infection, or surgery in the vicinity of parotid gland. The penetrating wounds of the gland or the surgery or the trauma, it results in opening up of the parotid capsule, which damages the auriculotemporal nerve, and sometimes it also involves the great auricular nerve. The auriculotemporal nerve ordinarily provides the sympathetic fibers to the sweat gland and parasympathetic innervation to the salivary gland, auriculotemporal nerve. When the trauma occurs, the parasympathetic fibers they may become misdirected and they regenerate along the pathway of the sympathetic nerve, thereby establishing a connection with the sweat gland and the blood vessels of skin. Thus, instead of saliva production, sweating and flushing occurs with a gustatory stimulus. Damage to the ganglions within the cervical sympathetic chain, they may also cause auriculotemporal syndrome. So the symptoms of Fraze syndromes are triggered by chewing, that is the gustatory sweating, or by the sight, smell or thought of food. So when a patient eats or smells the food, beads of sweats appear on the skin of gland because stimulus for the salivary secretion produces sweat secretion, which is causing flushing. That is known as Fraze syndrome. So the characteristic feature of Fraze syndrome are the flushing, warmth, and excessive sweating of the ipsilateral facial skin. A burning sensation, itching or pain in the distribution of auriculotemporal nerve may also be seen. So if we revise it, the Fraze syndrome is characterized by sweating, warmth and redness of face of the ipsilateral facial skin as a result of salivary stimulation by the smell or taste of food. For management, generally there is a recommendation of auriculotemporal nerve avulsion or the subcutaneous infiltration of purified botulinum toxin is recommended. So with this, we end the topic on the parotid gland. Thank you.